everyone, it's Tara. Welcome back to my channel and to my June and July wrap up because I never got around to doing my June wrap up. So yeah, luckily I am filming this rather promptly as it is August 1st. We'll see how quickly I get this up, but I am filming it on August 1st. So I don't want this video to be like insanely long, so I'm gonna just try and like bust through it here. So we're going to start with June, obviously, and then move into July. So, first up, in June, I read Through the Grinder by Cleo Coyle, which is book 2 in the Coffee House Mystery series. I had buddy read the first book with Rainey and Amanda a while ago. I don't remember exactly when. And like none of us were like super enthralled with the book 1, but I was like, you know what, let me like give book 2 a try. See if like what I didn't like about book 1 is like resolved in book 2. And it was to some extent, without going into like a lot of spoilers. So you follow our main character whose name escapes me right now, but I'll put it somewhere. And she is the manager of a coffee house in New York City. She used to manage this like a long time ago. It was the coffee house that her like former mother-in-law owns. And so she managed it like while she was still married to like her ex-husband. Then she like kind of moved into the suburbs, didn't really work there anymore. And then she has recently like taken the job back. So she's like working at this coffee house in New York City. In book 2, they host like a like speed dating night, and people that are like regulars of the coffee house and people that attended this like speed dating night end up killed. Our biggest, like mine, Rainey, and Amanda's biggest complaints about book 1 was that it was very info dumpy as far as like coffee is concerned, and that was somewhat resolved in book 2. But I've realized that I think what I don't like as much about it is that it's set in a city, and you just don't get those like cozy vibes that you could get in like other cozy mysteries set in a small town. So I ended up giving that 3.5 stars. Book 2 for June was A Game of Cones by Abby Collette. That is book 2 in the, I want to say it's called the Ice Cream Parlor mystery series. I give that 3.5 stars as well. So we follow our main protagonist, Bronwyn, in this, and she's in a suburb of Chicago. If it's not Chicago, it's somewhere in Ohio. I can't remember. It might be a suburb of Cleveland. And she has just taken over her grandparents' ice cream parlor. That's kind of like the setup of that series. In book 2, why don't I remember? Like, I'm like getting like snippets of what happens, but I don't remember exactly what happens. I don't remember what happens. Oh my gosh. When I can look it up, I will insert a clip while I'm editing of what that is. Hey, not editing Tara, just I remembered something, Tara, coming at you. It's literally like 5 minutes after I finished filming that wrap up. A brief synopsis for A Game of Cones. You are following the like main, group of people, Bronwyn and her friends, as they are investigating the murder of a developer who showed up at like a town hall meeting and announced all of these like huge changes coming to the town, and the developer ends up dead, and they end up kind of trying to figure out what happened to him. So very brief synopsis of that. But like some of my like bigger complaints are, again, you get more of like a like bigger town, even though it's technically a suburb of a big city. You don't get those like small town cozy vibes. um, so book 3 in June was Caucuses and Crime by London Lovett. This is book 9 in the Port Danby series. I gave this 5 stars. This one is, I can't say too much, but basically it's like winter in Port Danby, and a local, like, a local man is killed, and one of Lacey's good friends is the like prime suspect in the case. There is some like personal conflicts going on that I can't really talk about because it would be spoilers, but really, really good. And just the color scheme in this, that cover, the purples and the teal and the black, love it. 5 stars. Then I finished A Promised Land by Barack Obama. I listened to the audio of this, which Barack Obama narrates as well. 5 stars here. 4.5 stars. 4.5 stars. I did find it a little bit long in some parts, but overall I really enjoyed it. And without getting like too political, because I don't like my channel to be political. I don't like talking about politics in general. You learn a lot about, like, you learn a lot more than like what the news led on to about some of like the big ticket things that happened during Barack Obama's first term as president in this one, which was interesting to me because, so this is like leading up to the 2008 election and then his like first term as president. And that was the first election I could vote in. I was like an adult, you know, finally like kind of paying attention to things going on in the world. So being able to get like an inside perspective as to like what he was going through, making the decisions that he did, was very interesting. Then I read The Cradle Will Fall by Mary Higgins Clark. I buddy read this with Chloe. I gave this 3 stars. It was not my favorite Mary Higgins Clark book. I didn't hate it, but basically in this, you follow a prosecutor, Katie. She is in a car accident and she ends up staying overnight at a hospital. And while she's overnight at this hospital, she sees something out a window that she kind of is like, did I actually see that? Or is this like a result of like the sleeping meds that the hospital gave me? Then like the next day, she finds out that this woman commits suicide, and the more she digs into it, the more she realizes that what she saw was real, and she's like trying to like put all the pieces together. I didn't hate it. I've just found that Mary Higgins Clark's earlier works I'm not as big of a fan of as her like later stuff. And this was written in 1980. It was basically, you know who the killer is, you just don't know why he's doing it, and that was like a little bit different perspective. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't my favorite either. Then I read The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. This I read for my book club. Loved this. 5 stars. I read it in essentially one day. No complaints whatsoever. I mean, which I am like, Christina Lauren's a pretty like solid author duo for me. Like, I'm pretty confident that I'm gonna like their stuff. So I had kind of procrastinated reading it because I was like trying to finish up some buddy reads and stuff, and sat down and literally read it in like one day. So good. So you follow Jessica, who's a single mom, and she's kind of like not really been like thinking much about dating seriously. Her and her like best friend end up like signing up for this dating app where they match you based on your DNA. And she ends up getting like this like record breaking like match with one of the founders of this dating app. But they don't, like, they've met in person and they don't really like each other. So they're trying to figure out, like, why are we this, like, great match? Really good. And the doctor that she matches with, the, like, founder of the app, his name is River. But really good. Highly recommend. Um, then I read The Lincoln Highway by Amor Tolls. This is for my workbook club. I gave this 3 stars. I listened to the audio. If I had not listened to the audio, I would have DNF'd this. Long story short, I don't think I'm a fan of Amor Tolls' writing. The story itself was like good, not great. There were characters in here that I really, really enjoyed, but I don't know if like some literary fiction is just too like sophisticated for me or what, but like it was really long and didn't need to be this long. There was like extra perspectives that I didn't think were necessary. There were like some like storylines that I didn't think were all that necessary. I don't know. And like that seems to be the consensus of everyone in my book club at work, is no one like loved it, no one hated it, but we were all just kind of like, we don't get what the hype's about. And I know people like rave about Amor Tolls here on BookTube. People loved this book. People loved A Gentleman in Moscow. People love Rules of Civility. I don't think I'm going to read another Amor Tolls unless it's like chosen as a book club pick, and I have to, because it was only okay. And if they're all massively long, then no. Then I read Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. I did this as a buddy read with Berna and Gaia Athena and a couple of other people. I gave this 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. And honestly, like all Brandon Sanderson has been like really solid. All of the Brandon Sanderson that I've read, and it's not like a ton, but it's all been really like solid for me. Like 4 stars or higher. I mean, they're all like chunky, but they're all like worth it. So in this was a standalone. I think he's releasing a sequel to it now. But you can like read this, and I think there's only going to be one more book. I think it's going to just be a duology. And I don't think that like the way that I understand it, it's like more like a companion novel. But anyways, so you follow 2 princesses who are sisters. One has been groomed to basically marry the prince of like another kingdom, and the other one has not. And last minute, they're basically getting ready to send the sister who's been like groomed to like marry this prince. Last minute, they're getting ready to send her off, and her father's like, nope, we're sending the other one. And you kind of go from there. You follow both her sisters' perspectives. You get a couple of other perspectives along the way. Very interesting. There's plot twists, like up until like the last like 20 pages. You're like, what? I was literally like sitting in bed, like reading it. And like, I was like, what? Like, and John, John recommended this for me. He was like, oh, what just happened? Like, so, really good. And like easy to follow. Like, it's not like a super like complicated magic system. It's not super like it's intimidating only because of the size. And if you don't read a lot of fantasy, it might be intimidating, but like it's pretty easy to follow. So yeah. Then the last book I read in June was Mocha, She Wrote by Ellie Alexander, which is book 12 or 13 in the Bake Shop Mystery Series. I gave that 5 stars. Again, without saying too much because it's so far along in a series. In this book, you are following Andy, who is the barista at, or one of the baristas at Tort, and he has entered a like barista competition. And so the people of Tort go and support him as he's competing in this. And one of the judges ends up dead, and that's kind of like the mystery. I love that you get a little bit more of Jules and Carlos, which I just love. I love that relationship, and I love that you get to see them kind of like go through a rough patch and like work through it. Ooh, I might have to cut that out. That might be spoilers. I don't know, but I love like their relationship. I don't think it's spoilers. Sorry if you are reading that and didn't know that that's what happens. That's what happens. So they're continuing to like work through their problems, and I love that. You just get the whole like gang of the Bake Shop Mystery Series, and it's great. Okay, so that was June. It was a total of 9 books. We're gonna take a wine break. Cheers. Now, on to July. In July, I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books. And honestly, all but one of them was a 4.5 or higher. July was a fantastic reading month for me. So first up, Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I gave this 5 stars. Emily Henry is also becoming a like very like solid go-to author for me. In this you follow Nora and Charlie. Nora is a book, what's her job title? She's not an editor. She's a book, oh my gosh, what is her title? Oh my gosh, a book, like a rep. She basically gets books in the hands of editors type thing. I don't know. Why does it not say? Why does it not say her job title? A literary agent. She's an agent. And it's basically, she meets this editor, Charlie, who like, they don't get along, and they end up bumping into each other while Nora's on vacation, and you follow their journey. I love the like sister vibes because Nora goes on vacation with her sister Libby. I love that relationship because I found it, like, I know other people have said that they didn't think it was like super realistic, but I thought it was because like I have 2 sisters, and I feel like a lot of the things that Nora and Libby do are things that like normal sisters do. Like they were kind of just being like, yeah, everything's fine, like when it wasn't. Like they were like kind of hiding some details from each other, things like that. And I think that's like somewhat realistic, as someone who has 2 sisters. So 5 stars, amazing, loved it. Then I read The Golden Couple by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. This was my July book club pick for my in-person book club. I gave this 4.5 stars. Not my favorite of their books, but like up there. So without going into too much detail, because this is a mystery thriller, you are following a couple, Marissa and Matthew, and they have decided to go see a like marriage counselor therapist named Avery. And Avery's methods are not standard, not typical. She's actually lost her license, so she's not like a licensed therapist. She's a what is she? Not a therapist. She's a, I don't remember what term they use, but like she's, you know, she's not, and Marissa and Matthew know that she's lost her license. And so you get to explore kind of what's going on. So like Avery has this like 10 meeting like method that she uses, and so you kind of go through all 10 of those meetings, learning a little bit more about like the problems in Marissa and Matthew's marriage along the way. You also get some information about Avery and some of her past clients. It's really interesting. And the main perspectives in this are Marissa and Avery. Do we get Matthew's perspectives? I don't think we do. I think it's just the two of like I think it's just Marissa and Avery, but it was pretty good. I like The Wife Between Us a little bit better, but that's probably my like second favorite of their books so far. Then I read Romantically Challenged by Marina Adair. This I gave 4.5 stars as well. Totally picked it up like on a whim. You've probably already seen the video where I kind of talk about this before you see this one, so you'll know why I picked it up. But This was really good. So in this, you follow Annie. She was adopted. She was born in Vietnam, I want to say, and then adopted into a white family. So she grew up kind of like being different from everyone else, but she had a good like childhood, no complaints, anything like that. She has an engagement go awry, and so she decides she is going to, like, she needs to get away for a little bit. So she takes a temporary assignment in Rome, Rhode Island, and ends up like booking a like long-term Airbnb. The problem is that the person that she got the Airbnb through manages this Airbnb rental for his friend. They kind of split the profits 50-50. And the friend, Emmett, comes home earlier than expected, goes home, and there's somebody at his house. And they kind of have to figure out what they're going to do about that, because technically she has a contract through Airbnb, but it's his house, and that's kind of where this picks up. I really loved it. Emmett is a single dad of a teenage girl, and he kind of has an interesting relationship with his daughter and the caretakers of his daughter. It's really good. It's really sweet. I really enjoyed it. It made me tear up a couple of times, which like bumps a book like way up there. Really, really good. Then I read, I'm going to kind of do 2 for 1 here. A Torch Against the Night and Reaper at the Gates, books 2 and 3 in the Ember and the Ashes series. I listened to both of these on audio. I mean, I'm loving these books. These were both 5 stars. They're just really good. I love all of the characters. I don't want to go into too much detail if you haven't read these, just because you can't really, like, they kind of just like take place like one right after another, like cliffhangers and all of that. But great characters, a very interesting like world. You're very invested in everything going on. Highly recommend. Then I listened to Made by Stephanie Land. I gave this 5 stars. This was so good. This audiobook is also narrated by the author. I absolutely loved it. Like the stories that she tells, her experiences, like everything, so good. Like no complaints whatsoever. So basically Stephanie Land, she is a single mom, she is. This is a memoir. She was a single mom of a young girl. She was a victim of domestic violence. She was homeless, and she kind of like worked her way through all of that, taking whatever job she could find. She winds up working for like a maid service in, she tells like some stories and like her experiences of like both cleaning through this maid service and like her own like life story. So good. So good. I really recommend this. Then 2 books that I finished this weekend, July 30th and July 31st. First up, we have Christmas Cupcake Murder by Joanne Fluke. This I gave 3.5 stars. And this one kind of like hurts me a little bit. So this one is like the second or third most recent book published in the series, but it takes place like way back at the beginning of the series, which like kind of irks me. Like I don't love when that happens, because you're like, oh, I have to read these in order, but like chronologically this takes place somewhere between like books 1 and 5. I don't remember exactly where. I feel like the story itself was like okay, like no one dies. Basically there's a homeless man that turns up, asks Hannah for like help one morning. It's Christmas time. Basically says like, is there anything I can do to like get a cup of coffee, like to work to like get a cup of coffee and like some food or whatever. She gives him some like odd jobs to do. They end up finding him a little bit later that day, and he's like malnourished, all of this stuff. And Hannah becomes determined to figure out who he is because he ends up having like some amnesia. That's all like all fine and good. The thing that like irked me about this is like, I feel like there were details, if you like have recently read through the series like I have, that like didn't match up. Like they reference like Hannah having a cell phone, but like Hannah doesn't get a cell phone until later on in the series. They reference like smartphones, which like I don't think were like around when the series, like when the books first started being written, or they weren't like prevalent like they are today. There were other details like that and like some like inconsistencies. Like I have to go back, but I want to say that they reference Andrea and Bill's nanny, but I feel like she didn't come around until a little bit later either. I want to say she didn't come around until Andrea and Bill have their second daughter, but they talk and they haven't had their second daughter yet. I could be wrong though. But there were just some inconsistencies that like irked me as someone who has read through the entire series, that like I'm kind of like, well, like couldn't the author like go back through and like kind of like fine tooth, like take a fine tooth comb through that and like make sure that like some of the smaller details like match up, because like fans of the novel, fans of the series, I think are going to pick up on that. I mean, the story itself is fine. I was just a little bit irked by some of the inconsistencies. Then the last book I read in July was Sisters in Arms by Kaya Anderson. I gave this 4.5 stars. This was really, really, really good as well. And it talked about something that I knew very little, if anything, about. This follows the first, it says it's a novel of the daring Black women who served during World War II. This is about the first like Black women to serve. They're like the Women's Army Corps. So you follow 2 main characters. You get to know some of the other like characters as well. You follow Grace and Eliza, and they're like complete opposites, polar opposites, but they're kind of forced to work together through the army. And you follow their journeys from like recruitment, if you will, from like enlisting into the Women's Army Corps, all the way through like the end of World War II. And it's very interesting. I knew nothing about that. I mean, I knew that like women served in World War II, but like I didn't know to what extent, and you learn more about that here. It's very good. Very good. You really get to love both the characters, even though they're like very different. There's like, there's some great qualities about them. There's some not so great qualities about them. They're human. You get that humanity through this. You really come to like love their relationship, like the 2 of them. It's very good. Highly recommend. So that is my June and July wrap up. I want to wrap this up really quickly because it's really hot in the office because I don't have the AC on because it's really loud and I've been rambling for almost half an hour. How was your July? We'll say how was your July because June's all a month ago. Have you read any of these books? Do you want to read any of these books? Let me know, all that jazz down below. That is it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy reading. Bye.